The call came at 3 p.m. Arthur Finch, my private investigator. I answered from my corner office overlooking Manhattan, my voice curt. Report. For 2 weeks I'd paid him to prove what my gut already screamed about my wife, Clara. A beat of static-filled silence, then Finch's voice, tight with disbelief. "Mr. Vance, I'm on a flight to LA seat 12B. A cold knot formed in my stomach. And Clara?" He hesitated. "She's in 12C, with the man from 12A. They just kissed." The world tilted, Finch continued, his voice barely a whisper. "I've been sitting next to them for 3 hours. Elliot, I watched the whole damn thing start." The phone felt like a block of ice against my ear. I turned from my view of the city, a monument I had built, and sank into my leather chair. Clara, my Clara. The former gallery curator I'd met at a charity auction, all sharp wit and a dazzling smile that could disarm titans of industry. I'd given her everything, the penthouse, the Hamptons estate, a name that opened every door in this city. She wasn't just my wife. She was the most valuable acquisition of my life, the perfect partner for the Sterling Vance brand. And she was liquidating her shares for a cheap thrill at 30,000 feet. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was a catastrophic market downturn in my own home. My knuckles whitened. The shock evaporated, replaced by an anger so cold and pure, it felt like clarity. This wasn't a marriage ending. This was a hostile takeover. And I never, ever lose. "Finch," I said, my voice a flat, deadly calm that could freeze boardroom negotiations. "Get his name. Get a picture. When you land, don't let them out of your sight for a second. I want to know everything." I hung up, the silence of my office pressing in. My world was built on calculated risks and infallible data. I didn't do emotion. I did analysis. And for 15 years, Clara had been my most successful merger. I found her at a Sotheby's benefit, a piece of art more captivating than anything on the auction block. She was a curator with ambition in her eyes, trapped in a world of dusty relics and old money she didn't have. I saw her potential immediately. She wasn't just beautiful, she was a strategic asset. She had the polish I lacked, the social grace that could smooth the rough edges of my reputation. I was a brute force in the boardroom. She would be my ambassador in the ballroom. Our courtship was a negotiation. I laid out the terms implicitly. A world of limitless privilege in exchange for absolute loyalty. The penthouse wasn't a home. It was a headquarters. The galas weren't parties. They were networking events. And she played her part flawlessly. She charmed my rivals, remembered the names of my investors, children, and wore the Sterling Vance name like a bespoke couture gown. For years, our ROI was incredible. She was perfect. Until she wasn't. The cracks started small, hairline fractures in a flawless facade. A year ago, it was the phone calls she'd take on the terrace, her voice a hushed melody I couldn't quite hear over the city hum. "Just my sister?" she'd say, the smile not quite reaching her eyes. Then came the charity trips to the West Coast, always alone. Her excuses were plausible, but the financials didn't add up. A line item on her Amex for a dinner for two at a restaurant in Venice Beach. A cash withdrawal from an ATM in a part of LA she had no reason to be in. They were data points, anomalies in a predictable system. I've liquidated billion-dollar companies for less. I approached it like any other business problem. You don't ignore a dip in a stock's performance. You investigate the underlying weakness. So I hired Arthur Finch, the best in the business, a man known for his discretion and surgical precision. I didn't want messy confrontations or tearful confessions. I wanted cold, hard facts. I wanted proof of breach of contract before I initiated divestment. Finch was supposed to be my instrument of quiet discovery, a ghost in the machine. Instead, he'd become a front-row spectator to the demolition. He wasn't just confirming my suspicions. He was narrating the exact moment the asset I'd invested everything in declared itself worthless, right before his very eyes. My jaw tightened. This wasn't a heartbreak. It was an audit. And the final report was about to come in, live from 30,000 feet. The city lights began to glitter outside my window, a sprawling circuit board I knew how to command. I didn't move. I simply sat in the deepening twilight of my office, a predator waiting for the signal. My phone buzzed on the polished mahogany desk. A text from Finch. It was a photo, slightly blurry, taken from an angle just over a seatback. Clara was laughing, her head tilted back, her profile illuminated by the tiny cabin light. The man next to her was looking at her with an expression of pure, unadulterated adoration. He was younger, handsome in a soft, unthreatening way, the kind of man who mistakes charm for power. Below the picture, a single line of text: Julian Croft, architect, LA-based. An architect. He builds things, a quaint, noble profession. I, on the other hand, dismantle them. I saved the image to a secure folder I labeled Project Nightingale. A nightingale sings a beautiful, deceptive song before it's caged. I analyzed Julian Croft's face, the weak chin, the artist's hands, the cheap watch on his wrist. He wasn't a threat. He was a tool, a piece of leverage Clara had just handed me, gift-wrapped. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Finch again. He was on foot, his voice a low, hurried whisper against the sound of traffic. "They're checking in. The Chateau Marmont." He booked a bungalow under his name. "One room?" I asked, my voice devoid of inflection. "One room, Mr. Vance. One key card." Finch sounded uncomfortable, like a war correspondent who'd gotten too close to the blast. "They didn't even make it to the bungalow. They're at the bar. She's drinking a Vesper martini. He has a scotch. They're not talking much, just looking at each other." He just reached across the table, tucked a piece of hair behind her ear. I pictured it, the casual intimacy, the stolen glances. These weren't the actions of a one-time mistake. This was the comfortable routine of a long-running deception. The charity trips, the dinners for two. Julian Croft wasn't a stranger from seat 12A. He was the underlying weakness in the stock I'd been investigating all along. Finch hadn't witnessed a beginning. He'd stumbled into the middle of the third act. "What is she wearing?" I asked. Finch paused. "A blue silk dress. The one from the papers. The Met Gala last year." Of course. The dress I'd paid $10,000 for. My brand. My investment. She was wearing my assets while cavorting with the enemy. The audacity was almost impressive. "Stay on them, Finch," I commanded, my mind already mapping out the next dozen moves on a chessboard only I could see. "I don't want to report on their dinner. I want to know what they are to each other. Get close. I want to know if he's married, if he has kids. I want to know if he has debt. I want to know what she told him about me. Mr. Vance, getting that close is risky. Your risk is factored into your fee." I cut him off. "I am not paying you to watch them drink. I'm paying you for ammunition. Find his pressure points. Every man has them. Now send me everything you have on Julian Croft's firm. I want his client list, his financials, his pending projects. I want to own the ground he plans to build on by sunrise." I hung up before he could reply. The betrayal was no longer a personal wound. It was a business plan. The process wasn't about feeling. It was about gathering intelligence. Julian Croft thought he'd won the prize of a lifetime. He had no idea he'd just volunteered to be the primary casualty in a war he didn't even know had been declared. The lights of Manhattan stared back at me, cold and unforgiving. Just like me. I didn't storm or rage. I didn't break a single thing. I simply swiveled my chair back to my desk, the glittering city at my back, and opened my laptop. The rage had already cooled and hardened into something far more useful. A strategy. My phone buzzed. Finch's preliminary dossier on Croft Design Associates. I scanned the financials with the speed of a predator assessing its prey. Boutique firm. Good press. A handful of wealthy, art world clients Clara had likely cultivated for him. And one glaring, fatal weakness. Nearly all his capital was tied up in a single, ambitious project. The new Atherton Foundation Gallery in Malibu. He was leveraged to the hilt. A house of cards waiting for a breeze. I dialed a single number on my private line. It was answered on the first ring. Marcus. Marcus Thorne was the head of my firm's Special Projects Division, a euphemism for the department that made problems and people disappear. He was a corporate sociopath, and he was completely loyal to me. "We have a new initiative," I said, my voice low and even. "Internal designation, Project Nightingale." "Objective?" Marcus asked, no emotion in his voice. "Hostile liquidation. The target is a West Coast firm, Croft Design Associates." I forwarded him Finch's file. "They're building the new Atherton Gallery. I want you to find who's financing it. I want to know who holds the note on his business loans, his construction bonds, his personal mortgage. I want to own every penny of Julian Croft's debt. By the time the market opens in New York, consider it purchased," Marcus said. There was no hesitation, no questions about why. Just the clean, efficient hum of a weapon being armed. I hung up and pulled the photo from Finch back onto my screen. Clara and Julian. I zoomed in, not on her face, but on his. I saw the foolish, hopeful ambition in his eyes. He thought he'd found a shortcut into my world through my wife. He didn't understand. Clara wasn't the door. She was the bait in a trap he had just sprung on himself. He wasn't a rival. He was a bankruptcy in waiting. My focus shifted to Clara, the dress, the smile, the casual way she let him touch her. It wasn't a betrayal of love. It was a breach of contract, a violation of the terms of our merger. And I always enforce my contracts. I opened a separate encrypted folder on my server, the one containing the architecture of my life: trusts, holding companies, offshore accounts. I navigated to the primary Vance Family Trust, the financial engine that fueled Clara's entire existence. Her name was listed as the primary beneficiary. My finger hovered over the mouse. This wasn't emotion, it was risk management. I was simply isolating a compromised asset before it could infect the rest of the portfolio. With a quiet click, I opened the amendment document. The cursor blinked, patient and absolute, waiting for its command. The demolition had begun. The cursor blinked, a single unwavering pulse in the cathedral-like silence of my office. I typed a new name into the beneficiary field of the Vance Family Trust, the Vance Foundation for Urban Redevelopment, a charitable entity I controlled completely. Clara's name vanished. With a final decisive keystroke, 15 years of our marital contract were relegated to a historical footnote. I clicked Save. Then, Execute. The server confirmed the change in less than a second. The asset was firewalled. The emotional part of the equation was now surgically removed. An email chimed, the sound sharp and precise. The subject line was a single word: Nightingale. It was from Marcus. The body of the email was a stark, beautiful piece of corporate poetry. Asterisk, asterisk, Croft Design Associates, asterisk, primary business loan, Pacific Crest Bank, asterisk, acquired, primary construction bonds, Atherton Project, asterisk, acquired via secondary market purchase, asterisk, personal mortgage, Venice Beach property, asterisk, primarius, Maris, primarius, primarius, acquired, Mare things, total leverage secured, asterisk, asterisk 100%. Marcus had added a single concluding sentence. He is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Sterling Vance Capital. He just doesn't know it yet. I felt a ghost of a smile touch my lips. This was the purity of the market. No messy emotions. No tearful recriminations. Just the clean, elegant transfer of power. Julian Croft went to bed, thinking he was a rising star in California architecture. He would wake up as my employee, his entire professional and personal life collateral on a loan I now held. But owning his debt was just the first step. Debt is leverage, and leverage is only useful when applied to a pressure point. I pulled up the file on the Atherton Foundation gallery. It was Julian's magnum opus, the project that would make his name. The foundation was run by Robert Atherton, old money, a man whose family crest was probably a terrified-looking dollar sign. His entire identity was tied to his family's reputation for stability and quiet philanthropy. He abhorred risk. He detested scandal. We'd sat on one charity board together. I knew exactly how he thought. I picked up the phone and dialed his private number. He answered on the second ring, his voice wary. Atherton. Robert. Elliot Vance. I hope I'm not disturbing you. A pause. I could hear the gears turning in his head. A call from me at this hour was never social. Elliot. To what do I owe the pleasure? I was calling about your new gallery in Malibu, I said, my tone casual, as if discussing the weather. A magnificent undertaking. I was just reviewing the portfolio of your architect, a Mr. Julian Croft. He's a brilliant young man, a visionary. Robert's defense was immediate, automatic. His vision may be clear, but his financials are opaque. I countered smoothly. It has come to my attention, through a recent acquisition by my firm, that Mr. Croft's company is leveraged to a degree that I would consider structurally unsound. In point of fact, Robert, Sterling Vance now holds every penny of his debt, his business, his home, all of it. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. I let it hang in the air, a weapon in itself. I'm not sure I understand the purpose of this call, Elliot. His voice was strained. The purpose, Robert, is risk management. Your foundation is a monument to stability, a legacy. Associating the Atherton name with a firm that is, for all intents and purposes, on the verge of total financial collapse, that's a headline I'm sure your board of trustees would prefer not to read over their morning coffee. Imagine the whispers at the club. Did you hear about the Atherton Gallery? The architect went bankrupt mid-project. Reputations, as you know, are far more fragile than concrete and steel. I heard him take a sharp breath. I had him. What do you want? He asked, the pretense gone. I'm presenting a solution, I said, my voice now a reassuring balm. A way to quietly and seamlessly transition the project away from this liability. I have a world-class architectural firm, a client of ours with an impeccable balance sheet, ready to step in tomorrow. No delays, no press, just a simple change in contractors. To offset any inconvenience and to show my personal commitment to the arts, Sterling Vance would also be prepared to make a rather substantial, 8-figure donation to the foundation. Think of it as an insurance policy on your legacy. It wasn't an offer. It was a directive wrapped in the language of philanthropy. He could fight me and face the public implosion of his pet project, or he could take my money, accept my new architect, and pretend this was his idea all along. I'll have my legal team draw up the paperwork, he said, his voice flat with defeat. My team will have it on your desk by 7 a.m. Pacific, I replied. A pleasure doing business with you, Robert. I hung up. The kill was clean. By the time Julian Croft woke up next to my wife, his career-defining project would have been surgically excised from his life, and he would have no idea who held the scalpel. My phone buzzed on the desk. A text from Finch. It wasn't a report. It was a picture. A close-up of a phone screen, displaying a text message conversation. Underneath, Finch's text read, "She left her phone at the bar when they went up to the room. I have it. This is the last message she sent him before they met at the airport." I zoomed in on the image. It was a message from Clara to Julian. Her words were simple, a devastating little knife twist. Asterisk, counting the seconds. I can't stand pretending anymore. This life feels like a prison. You're the only real thing in it. See you on the plane. A prison. The penthouse overlooking Central Park. The staff of 12. The black Amex with no limit. A prison. For a moment, A flicker of something hot and raw sparked in my chest. Not pain, indignation, the sheer breathtaking ingratitude. I had built her a kingdom, and she called it a cage while running to a man I had just financially neutered from 3,000 miles away. The flicker died as quickly as it came, extinguished by the cold wave of strategy. Her phone. He had her phone. Her entire digital life. Her private correspondence, her lies, her network of friends and confidants who likely knew all about her affair. It wasn't just a phone, it was the master key to her entire world. Courier it to my office. Overnight, don't open another thing, I texted back. And Finch, get some sleep. Phase 2 begins at dawn. The FedEx box arrived at 9 a.m. Inside, nestled in bubble wrap, was Clara's phone. I powered it on, no password. The arrogance of the secure is a beautiful thing. I bypassed her texts with Julian. That was raw data tainted with emotion. I was looking for something far more valuable. Her social ledger, group chats with the other wives from the museum board, emails with gallery owners, DMs with society columnists. It was all there, a meticulously crafted narrative of her victimhood. Elliot was a brilliant but cold husband. Our penthouse was a gilded cage. She wasn't having an affair. She was finding herself. She'd been using my name, my reputation, as the backdrop for her cheap melodrama, cultivating sympathy from the very people whose loyalty I subsidized. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was shorting my stock in the one market she was supposed to manage. My finger stopped on an email chain. The subject: Art and Soul Gala, Final Logistics. A charity event. Tonight. She was the co-chair, her big moment. A keynote speech about enduring partnerships. The irony was a blade. The guest list was a roll call of our entire world. The stage was set. It was time to inform the actors of their new roles. I looked up the number for the Chateau Marmont and asked for Julian Croft's bungalow. He answered on the third ring, his voice thick with sleep and satisfaction. Hello? Mr. Croft, this is Elliot Vance. The silence was immediate and profound. I could practically hear the blood draining from his face. I trust you slept well, I continued, my voice level. I'm calling with some professional news. As of 7 a.m. Pacific Time, your firm has been removed from the Atherton Gallery project, citing financial instability, a real shame. What are you talking about? That's impossible. Panic began to fray the edges of his voice. Oh, it's quite possible. You see, the holding company that now owns your business loans, your construction bonds, and the mortgage on your charming Venice home felt you were a poor investment. And I am that holding company. You've been liquidated, Julian. Welcome to the Sterling Vance portfolio. He was breathing hard now. You can't do this. I already have. It was the price of admission, the cost of pursuing an asset that belonged to me. Consider your career a transactional fee. I suggest you check your accounts before ordering room service. They may be unresponsive. I paused, letting the reality sink in. Tell Clara I'll be calling her next. I hung up before he could form a word. One pawn removed from the board. Next, Clara. I dialed her number. Her phone buzzed on my desk. I let it go to voicemail, then dialed the bungalow's landline. She picked up. Julian? Her voice was soft, intimate. No, Clara, it's your husband. A sharp intake of breath. Elliot, what are you doing? Just tidying up some loose ends, I said calmly. How is LA? It's fine. The charity meetings are productive. The lie was instant, reflexive. Good. I need you back in New York. Tonight. Wheels up in 3 hours. I can't, Elliot. I have the gala. The gala is tonight, Clara, and you will not be attending. Your position as co-chair has been rescinded. Your name has been removed from the program. Your ticket has been voided, along with your credit cards, your access to the household accounts, and your driver. What are you talking about? You can't do that. Her voice was rising, cracking with disbelief. This was the moment. The application of precise, unbearable pressure. "I've already done it," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "I'm holding your phone, Clara. I've read your little prison diaries. I've seen the life you find so real. And now, it's over. The man in the room with you is a bankrupt architect whose life I now own. Your friends are about to receive a portfolio detailing your breach of contract. You have nothing, you are nothing, except what I allowed you to be." A choked sob came through the line. "Don't cry. This isn't a tragedy, it's a market correction. A jet is waiting for you at Van Nuys Airport. If you are not on it, the contents of your phone will become the lead story on every gossip blog in the city by midnight. Your choice. Pack a small bag, you won't be needing much." I ended the call. I leaned back in my chair, the phone heavy in my hand. It wasn't a victory, it was an audit. A necessary, brutal balancing of the books. Outside, Manhattan hummed with ruthless efficiency. A system I understood. A system I controlled. The nightingale was caged. Now it was time for her to come home and sing. The heavy oak door of the penthouse clicked open, then shut with a soft final thud. I didn't turn from my position in the armchair, the city lights a cold, glittering tapestry behind me. I simply listened to her footsteps on the marble floor, hesitant, shuffling, the confident stride of a queen replaced by the defeated tread of a captive. She stopped at the edge of the living room, a silhouette in the dim light. I saw the small overnight bag at her feet. She had complied. "Hello, Clara," I said to the darkness. She flinched. When she spoke, her voice was a raw, broken whisper. "Elliot, please." "Please what?" I swiveled my chair to face her, my face illuminated by the single lamp beside me. "Plead for the man whose career I erased with a single phone call? Or for the life you so desperately wanted? You made a bad investment, Clara. You leveraged everything against a worthless asset. I simply corrected the market." Her face, pale and tear-streaked, crumpled. "He had nothing to do with us." "He had everything to do with us," I countered, my voice flat and cold as glass. "He was your co-conspirator in an act of corporate espionage against this family. And he has been dealt with." I stood and walked towards her, stopping just out of her reach. "Your life here was not a prison. It was a privilege, a contract you signed with your eyes wide open. You have breached that contract. There are penalties for that." I gestured to the sprawling apartment. "This is your world now, all of it. You will not leave without my permission. Your phone is gone. Your internet access will be monitored. Your friends will be told you are unwell. You will attend the functions I choose, wear the clothes I buy, and smile when I tell you to. You wanted a cage, now you have one." She looked at me then, the last flicker of defiance in her eyes dying out, replaced by a vast, empty understanding. She finally saw me. Not as a husband, but as the owner of the company she had tried to defraud. "You didn't win me back," she whispered, her voice hollow. A cold smile touched my lips. "My dear, I was never trying to win you back. I was repossessing stolen property." I turned my back on her. "Go to your room. We're done here. Okay, you get that call from your private investigator with this insane story. What is your very first move when your partner gets home?"